Welcome back. Time for our GMC Sierra tweet of the night. Comes from ESPN Stats and Info. At 23 years and 43 days old, Corbin Carroll is the youngest Diamondbacks player to hit a home run in a playoff game. Now, the last time I looked at that score before I came down to the studio, I want to say it was 4-3 Arizona over Milwaukee, but we'll have to get an update on that score. Other scores that happened today, of course, we saw with Minnesota beating Toronto 3-1 as well, but we'll try to get an update on that score here in the next few moments. But it's kind of a cool thing to see the season that Corbin Carroll had for Arizona. Just really dynamic player, 25 home runs, 50 stolen bases. It's not Ronald Acuna's 40 home runs and 70 stolen bases, which was an incredible feat to see this season, but it kind of amplifies a theory I've had for quite some time now. The best players in baseball, especially increasingly over the last decade or so, you're starting to see more players that are rising to the top of the game that are just incredibly athletic players that just do incredibly athletic things, and they do them pretty much in bulk. They do them pretty much in a fashion that is almost otherworldly. The things that Acuna does, and the things that Shohei Ohtani does, and the things that to a lesser degree Corbin Carroll does, but you are seeing a much more athletic type player start to rise to the top of the pile in baseball. 412-575-2600 is the number on the Bordas and Bordas hotline. Also taking your tweets at Josh Taylor HD. Zach on Twitter asked the question, how many wins do you think Pitt football ends up with this year? The last time I had a question about Pitt, what they were going to do, I was wrong about it. We had Joe Starkey on the show, I believe it was 2 Fridays ago, or 2 Saturdays ago. We said Pitt's next win would be against, and we both said Virginia Tech last week. And that didn't happen. If I'm being honest, 5 wins right now sounds generous. It sounds generous to say 5. We could be looking at a Pitt team that doesn't make a bowl game. And I don't think it would surprise anybody. I think that's where we are right now. Let's go to the phone lines. We have Mike in Morgantown. Mike, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hello.
Yes, Mike, how are you?
Good. I'm a little bit behind on the TV here.
Listen to your phone, not the TV.
I did. I turned it down.
Thank you.
Man, all I can say is God help us. That's all I can say.
Thanks. I hope you're okay. Because you're calling from Morgantown. You guys are doing well right now, right? Neil Brown's 4-1. Just BTC. I know I'm figuring he just talked about the Steelers, but be a little specific next time. Just saying. And honestly, 2-2. There's worse situations to be in. I understand the context of what he's saying. That just struck me as odd, but thanks for being concise, I guess. Will and McKee's Rocks. You're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hey, Josh, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Will?
I'm good. My best to you and your family, as always.
Appreciate you.
Oh, absolutely. I was wondering if I could talk Penguins with you and ask you a question.
Let's do it.
I would like to know, there seems to be a lack of chemistry on this team right now, and I know that they're just getting it started, with it being exhibition, but with next week being regular season games starting up, is the lack of chemistry on the players or is it on the coaching?
I think it's probably due to the fact that the roster hasn't been pared down yet. I'll worry about that when we get past the roster being pared down. We're down to that final group of guys. Once they get past that final preseason game, which I believe is tomorrow against Detroit, once we get all that narrowed down and we get down to the guys that are going to touch the ice every night and we see what those line rushes are and we see what those defensive pairings are, then I'll start to question whether or not this roster clicks. The one thing I do feel positive about, and it's something Mike Sullivan talked about today, he talked about the guys that they acquired over the offseason. It's hard to not be excited about bringing in an Erik Karlsson, even in the way they did it. And honestly, I think the way that Kyle Dubas did it, it might be the more exciting part than the trade itself. We got Gary in West Elizabeth. Gary, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Yeah, Josh. I've been talking to a few friends of mine. Football comes down to you got to be able to run the ball. You got to be able to stop the run. If you can't do either of them things, you're not going to win many games. That's my opinion. Thank you. I'll listen to what you have to say.
Gary, I love it. I love it. It's like you've been living in my hip pocket. I've been talking about this, the past 3 seasons now? When we talk about the Steelers, 2 seasons ago, we were talking about the Steelers' issue stopping the run. And then last season, they became a much better team at stopping the run. I want to say they were top 10 against the run last season. And you saw the difference in how it affected games last year. And I remind people, This defense last year held teams to 20 points or less 11 times last season, and they won 9 of those games. That is something that when you stop the run, that's the result you see, because it forces teams to become one-dimensional. And when you got guys like T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith on either side, both coming in hot around the edges, coming after your quarterback, I think that's important to be able to help shut an offense down, and that's exactly what you saw against Vegas. They were able to take Josh Jacobs out of the game, had a couple carries here and there, but once they were able to slow him down and force Vegas to become a passing team, granted, yeah, Devontae Adams did what he did, but in fairness, Devontae Adams has been doing that against a lot of teams for a long time. He's one of the best receivers in the game for a reason. It still points to a larger trend because every team has had a receiver that has really gotten theirs in against the Steelers in the past 4 weeks, but it speaks to a larger point. They were able to still get after Jimmy Garoppolo and force him to make mistakes, forcing interceptions, getting after him for sacks, and it even ended up in the concussion protocol. So it really lended to a much steeper decline as far as what an offense can do when you stop the run. And the truth of the matter is they've only done it once in 4 weeks, and that is a problem. You have to be able to do that in order to help your offense out. If you need any more proof, look at the Steelers' offense. Their opponents have done a pretty good job for the most part of slowing the Steelers' run game down in the first couple weeks. And then eventually you started to see the run game emerge a little bit here and there. You've seen it in flashes. We saw it in flashes against Houston. And then it all kind of fell apart once the injury to Kenny Pickett happened. They fell even further behind in the game, and it rendered it moot. But when you're able to run the ball, when the game is remotely close, it can help create balance in your offense. I'm going to go ahead and call that our number one Cochran call of the night. Great call there. Of course, number one Cochran, go one better. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we'll try to get one more call in before we wrap up. Stick around.